What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of It's Called Football, the Premier League football podcast for Vendetta Sports Media. As always, I'm Jerry Walker, and alongside me is Jackson Fyda. And Jackson, we have an international break going on, so not to talk about much previews. Maybe we will touch on some international stuff. We have some injury news, some coaching stuff to talk about towards the end, but mostly going to focus on the past weekend. But before we do all that, how are you doing on this Thursday afternoon?
I'm good. Can't really complain too much. Nice little international break to look forward to. US-Mexico's coming up, so pretty hyped about that. But
the start of Pochettino?
His first game's in charge. So we'll see how the new era begins. I'm pretty hyped about that. But always sucks when you have a weekend without Premier League action.
Yeah, I do. Just bringing up Pochettino before we hop into the Premier League stuff, because we all know he's managed Tottenham, managed Chelsea, done all this stuff. What are your expectations with him as the U.S. manager? And have you seen any lineup stuff? I haven't seen the U.S. squad yet, so has it changed at all?
It's kind of what I expected, just based on how certain players are injured, stuff like that. And certain players had to pull out of the squad, like Timothy Weah had to leave the squad due to injury. So you see guys like Brandon Vasquez getting a chance. I forget who else got called in. But interesting, 4 keepers. He brought on 4 keepers, which doesn't really surprise me that much because that's kind of a huge question mark for us moving forward is who's going to be that starting keeper. Because right now Matt Turner's not starting. He's not getting those minutes. So maybe it's a time to give Zach Steffen another shot because he's been doing all right. It's a time to give Patrick Schulte more of a look, even though he's only playing in the MLS. At least he's playing consistent minutes.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of the things I'm really interested to see is how the goalkeeping battle kind of pans out, because right now I feel like that's the spot that's really up for grabs. And obviously everything else is as well. You see a lot of guys like Tanner Tessman's going to get his chance this camp. Aiden Morris is going to get his chance. Gianluca Busio. So he's bringing in some of these guys who are playing in Europe and are getting significant minutes or chances over there. I mean, Tanner Tessman hasn't really been getting a whole lot, but he's breaking into a pretty good Lyon side, so that's understandable. But I'm pretty excited for it. I think what you'll see is the players are going to be held to a higher standard because it's not going to be as comfortable as it was under Berhalter. You know, everyone's going to have to compete for their spot. Everyone's going to have to win it. I think Pochettino's going to be more demanding than Berhalter was when it comes to training, when it comes to game, when it comes to off the field. I think he's going to be more demanding. He's going to be more demanding of the players when they're at the club teams as well than Berhalter was. So I think there will be positives. I think it's too early to kind of guess how the U.S. will do at the World Cup. You know, I want to see how we progress throughout the next year before you can start really saying, all right, I think we could reach this round, this round, this round. Obviously, the goal, I think, should be quarterfinals. That should be the goal for the U.S. team. But right now, this is based on how the U.S. has been playing. There's no way that U.S. team would be making the quarterfinals. So we got to let it play out. Got to let it see what happens. He's had to alter his squad a little bit due to injuries like Brandon Vasquez. Alejandro Zendejas is getting another chance as well. So it's not like we're not at full strength. You know, no Tim Weah. Reyna's still coming back from injury. Or he just got hurt again, actually. So I'm missing out on him. So all the pieces aren't quite there yet, but I'm very curious to see how this very first camp's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see because I think it's not a super strong team, but it's a team that needed someone to kind of push them to find that next gear. And I think Pochettino is a perfect guy for that. And I'm curious, as I think we all are, to see how that affects the U.S. national team and affects the players there because, as you said, there was that comfort around Berhalter of, oh, yeah, you're not going to get benched for playing poorly.
Yeah.
Pochettino sees something he doesn't like. I'm more than betting he's going to pull you off and make a change.
Yeah.
On that note, we are going to move back to the Premier League and start with one of Pochettino's old teams, Tottenham. Went to Brighton this weekend, and, man, they got off to the best start they could have wanted. Tottenham 2-0 in the first half. Goals from Brendan Johnson, James Maddison. It looked like Tottenham was going to run away with it. Second half, though, 3 minutes in after the break, Yankuba Matea gets a goal that
Yeah.
Jorginho Rutter gets a goal to levelize it. And then Danny Welbeck in the 66th minute, somehow still scoring goals at a Premier League level, puts Brighton ahead 3-2, and that they ultimately hold on to get that. So I'll start with the Tottenham side of things. What do you think went wrong in that second half? Because you're looking superb in the first half. You're up 2-0 on the road. Everything's going your way, and nothing in the second half.
It's very disappointing. And again, getting scored on in those first 5 minutes really kind of set the tone for how that second half's going to go. You know, you get that one, suddenly Brighton at home, you feel like you get the other one. It's not just that you as a team feel you can get it. The whole stadium feels that you can get it. You're playing at home. That gives you that boost of confidence. So I think that really changed things around. As soon as they got that first goal and got it early, that's when things started to go wrong. Because if you're a Tottenham player, like, oh shit, here we go. Now we're going to have to defend our asses off with these guys coming at us. They already got one. It's going to be easy for them to go and get another one. And they got it 10 minutes later. And then they got the winner 8 minutes after that. It's poor. It was poor from Tottenham. There's no way you should be up 2-0 and then end up losing that game 3-2. I know it's on the road, and there's that old adage that always gets thrown around that 2-0 is the most dangerous scoreline in soccer. Usually I scoff at that and call bullshit because it's like, you're up 2-0, you should be able to see it out. But it held true in this game. They were overconfident, obviously, coming out into the second half, and they got punished for it. And Brighton's a good team. They are a good team. They're not quite as good as we thought they could be at the beginning of the year, but they're a good team, you know? And they showed why they're ahead of Tottenham right now. They're in 6th place in the table.
Yeah.
They're doing all right. They've had a good start to the season, and they showed their class in this game. And it was impressive because you didn't just win the game. You came back from 2-0 down. So Brighton's going to be riding high in this confidence, but Tottenham just has continued to look so mid this year. It is unbelievable how mid they look. You know, I wouldn't say they look terrible the way they've started, but this Tottenham team should be up there at the top of the table. They shouldn't be languishing away like they are right now in 9th place. Again, it's early. They're only 4 points off a Champions League spot, so like keep things in perspective, but you'd expect to see Tottenham a little bit higher up, getting a little bit better results rather than the 3 wins, 1 draw, and 3 losses that they have.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this did end, I think, what was it, a 6-match or a 5-match winning streak for Tottenham across all competitions. So that's surprising in its own right. And they looked good against Man U the weekend prior. Didn't look bad against Ferencváros. It was 2-0, gave up a late one to cut the deficit in half. But this is something I expected more. And I know Son was out injured. Richarlison's been out injured for a while. Maybe that's just what they needed, was that leadership up top to kind of guide them. Don't get me wrong, Dominic Solanke had a very good first half, but he seemed to disappear in the second half. And I think part of that came with Brighton bringing on, Pervis Estupiñán. So he came in at left back at halftime and had a cross that ultimately bounced around before Minta. Before he put it away. So he immediately comes on, has an immediate impact, and that's what just gets you going. And props to Brighton for fighting through. It's been a very big year of 2-0 and you messed it up sort of matches. We look at Everton twice, and I think they even came back from one to draw 2-2 when they were down 2-0. So it's been a very interesting year. Maybe this is the year that we finally are like, okay, 2-0 leads aren't actually the best leads in football. Maybe
the old adage is true. Yeah.
It's coming back around now. But onto the table side of things, like as you said, Brighton in 6th, Tottenham in 9th, 2 points in between them, so it's not the end of the world, but it just makes it interesting because you look at the top of the table and the top 5 you expect to be. That's kind of the top 5 you predicted. Maybe Chelsea is the outlier, but they've still impressed so far. Newcastle in 7th. And it's like Fulham 8th, Forest 9th, or Forest 10th. It's a weird year. There's one big team missing out, and we'll touch on them in a little bit. But I mean, West Ham as well is disappointed, but
West Ham's so bad.
Great result for Brighton going into the international break. Who knows? Maybe the international break's what Tottenham needs to get Son healthy, get Richarlison back to match form. Because if they have those two available as well, That just means you can bring Werner off the bench. You can bring Richarlison or Solanke off the bench, one of them starting. It just makes that attack much more dangerous. And just seemed like they weren't creating chances in that second half that they usually do.
Yeah, rough game. Rough half. Rough way to finish. Good. Like you said, started out like gangbusters and then just completely disappeared in the second half. And I don't know. I'm expecting more from this Tottenham team with the players they have and the manager they have. You'd expect more. Again, it's early and they're only a few points off, so everything could change. We're not really going to get a true picture for how the season's starting to unfold for a long time. Like, we're still very early into this, but you want to see better from Tottenham.
Yes, you do. We'll say there was a game that was almost even more exciting, at least the first half was, than that Tottenham and Brighton game, and that was Brentford and Wolverhampton Wanderers. 2 minutes in. Ultimately, the match finished 5-3. Brentford won at home. But 2 minutes in, Nathan Collins gets the opener for Brentford. Wolves equalizes through Mateus Cunha 2 minutes later. And a penalty in the 20th minute that Brian Mbumo puts away for Brighton to make it 2-1, or for Brentford to make it 2-1. Wolves get an equalizer 6 minutes later. 2 minutes later, Brentford retakes the lead, and then they put a second one put a fourth goal by just before the end of the first half. So 6-goal first half. Love to see that. What did you think of that first half? Did you see it or saw the highlights? Or?
Yeah, I didn't get to watch it, but that's absolutely electric. 6 goals in the first half. And for a second, it was going back and forth, obviously, until Brentford kind of gained control of the reins of that game.
Yeah.
I mean, that from a neutral perspective, man, what a game.
Oh,
I mean, and you had that. What I thought was cool is each goal scorer only scored 1 goal.
Yep.
You got goals from 8 different people that game. 5 on the Brentford side of things and 3 on the Wolves side of things. So scoring coming from all areas. Ethan Pinnock got a goal, the center back right there. Yeah. So you're getting goals from all over the place. And it's a good win for Brentford, because when you look at it statistically, it was a pretty even game. Brentford had 2 more shots than Wolves, a lot more on target, which is why they ultimately won. But Wolves actually had more possession. But overall, I'd say it was pretty even game, but Brentford was able to capitalize on their chances. So if you're Brentford, sure, you're pissed off you gave up 3 goals, right? But you scored 5 of them. You scored 5 of the 12 you put on target. You also put 12 on target, which is pretty good, So if you're Brentford, man, you got to be really happy with that. And Wolves, you scored the 3 goals. Offensively, you did what you needed to do. Defensively, though, there needs to be some form of inquest because you just give up 5. 5 is just an insane amount of goals to give up in a soccer game. 4 is a lot. 5 is an insane amount. That's when you start getting into the whole crap. We played awful kind of category.
And that's been the story of Wolves all season. They've given up the most goals in the Premier League through 7 matches with 21. So they're giving up 3 goals a game. The second most amount of goals conceded, Southampton with 15 and Everton with 15. What is one thing these 3 teams have in common? They're stuck right in the relegation zone. Southampton and Wolves both only have 1 point, sitting across at the bottom of the table. Wolves are last with -12 difference, Southampton -11, but something drastically needs to change for this Wolves side because I honestly didn't think they were as bad as they were coming into the season.
I thought they were okay.
More. Didn't expect anything superb, but I thought they'd be mid-table mediocrity, not worried about the relegation zone, but here we are. And how long do you think Gary O'Neill has left?
Not long. You're getting to that point now where you're going to have to start making decisions because you're 7 games in, you have 1 draw, and you've given up this many goals. It's obvious that what we're doing, if you're Wolves, is not working. So they're going to have to really start looking at this. He'll be one of the first to go pretty soon. Like, obviously, Southampton's going to hold on to theirs. Ipswich will hold on to theirs a little bit longer. They're newly promoted. They know it's going to be tough. But if you're Wolves, you've been pretty well established in the Premier League here for a bit. and now you're sitting there in last place. And you've looked pretty bad. Some of the games they've actually looked pretty good in, and they were unfortunate to not get results. Like even going back to the Arsenal game at the very beginning of the year, they looked good in that game for large stretches. But at the end of the day, we live in a results business. You need to get results, and they're not getting results right now. And again, only 7 games in, but you also can't just let things keep happening and put yourself in a hole that you can't get out of, you know? So that's where the decision's going to have to come here is,
Yeah, and I mean,
do we
you look
keep
at some of the
and how long can we keep doing this?
and you look at some of their other results. They lost 6-2 at home to Chelsea. A lot of 2-1s, 3-1s, and a lot of close games. So they're in it, being competitively, but it's just their defense is lacking something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a formation change or a style or a player change, but they just have not looked like the Wolves team I expected to see this year.
Yeah.
Brentford, on the other hand, they're flying high, 11th place, kind of better than what I expected coming into this season. So props to them. They have 10 points. So with that being said, they're only 2 points off of 6th place.
Mm.
Still have a lot of big matches left. They have a very winnable match come out of the international break against Man U. So it's always a chance of that happening. But then it's like you look at their fixtures upcoming. Home to Ipswich, at Fulham, home to Bournemouth, at Everton, home to Leicester through November. They could win. They could have 15 points, 12 points from those 5 matches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with Thomas Frank at the helm, anything's possible. That man's an unbelievably good manager. So
yeah. I mean, I thought losing Ivan Toney was going to be a bit of a pain in the butt, but Brian Mbeumo has 6 goals.
He's having a great year.
He's having himself a great season and a half. So
it sucks that Visa's hurt.
Yeah, because he has 3 goals also, but that's a big loss for them. I don't know how long he's out for, but it's just this team just seems to be clicking.
Mm-hmm.
The ones they've lost are matches you it's not ones you expect to lose to Tottenham, lose to Man City, lose to Liverpool. Those are their 3 losses.
Mm.
They're doing what they need to do to stay up comfortably and avoid any sort of relegation talk and have a good season. You're beating the teams you're supposed to beat. You're losing to the big 6.
That's all you can do.
Yeah. You take that every day of the week if you're them. Still in the EPL Cup. Don't know who they have next. Oh, they have Sheffield Wednesday next.
There you go. There's an easy dub.
Yeah. That's going to be a feisty week of fixtures. Tottenham, Man City in the next round. Brighton, Liverpool. Southampton, Stoke. But nonetheless, do you have any other thoughts on this match before we move on to a couple others?
Fun game. You need games like this as a neutral, you know?
Oh, and it's good to see teams that aren't the big ones scoring a bunch of goals. Like it's fun seeing Brentford and Wolves because if you're watching that and you're not watching, I think Arsenal's at the same time, Man City was on at the same time, Newcastle maybe. It's I'm going to tune into one of those more often than not. But you see 2 goals in the first 2 minutes, or if you are watching, it's like, whoa, let me put that game on instead. And it brings more views and eyes to these other teams that aren't necessarily well-renowned, well-known everywhere. Speaking of Man City, they had an interesting game as well this weekend. Took on Fulham, ultimately won 3-2, but it was no goal for Erling Haaland. Maybe he's washed up now. Maybe his season is over. He doesn't score. But instead it was Mateo Kovacic who scored 2 goals. Jeremy Doku ultimately had the winner in the 82nd minute. But it's another match that they fall behind in the first half. 26 minutes in, Andres Pereira scores for Fulham to make it 1-0. Ultimately became 3-1, and before Rodrigo Muniz got one back late. But I don't know if this concerns me because they keep finding ways to win, but Man City consistently is giving up the first goal, and then it takes them a little while to get into the game.
It's something that can be concerning because they have not looked solid defensively at all this year. You know, Yeah, they've gotten one shutout, and that was the very first game of the season. Besides that, 0 clean sheets. It's defensive errors. It's falling asleep. It's putting yourself in a situation where you score 3 goals, but you only beat Fulham by 1. You know, it just hasn't been good enough from the defensive side. They're damn lucky that their attack is as good as they are. Where on a day where Erling Haaland is off, you can have Mateo Kovacic go and score 2 goals. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like they're still unbelievably stacked going forward. So like they're going to be fine, but it's when they play those bigger teams that can defend a little bit better. You know, that's when it's going to be tough. Because they haven't shown it right now. They haven't shown that they can defend when they need to. So as the season keeps going and you have to go travel to Arsenal next time rather than playing at home and playing a man up the whole second half, how is that going to go down? You know, how are you going to be able to handle that? How's your defense going to be able to handle better attacks? You know, if you're giving up goals against, no offense to the teams they're giving up goals to, but relatively weaker attacks, how are you going to do against the better attacks? And then also you can't necessarily rely on your attack as much when they've got better defenses, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, they're still finding ways to get results, which at the end of the day is what is most important. But if I'm in the City's back line right now, I'm pissed because they should be playing so much better than they are.
Yep.
They really should. They're so stacked. I mean, when you look at the quality they have, it's just unreal. I mean, across the board, best back line in the Premier League still on paper, but they haven't shown it.
The back four they played this weekend against Fulham was Rico Lewis, Memo Akanji, Ruben Diaz, and Gavardio. Do you expect maybe John Stones to step in? I know Kyle Walker's been starting more often than not, but I think I know they brought him on as a sub in this one. But I think it's time to get John Stones back in the lineup as he is captain of England today. I don't know what to do to fix that. And obviously, Rodri going out for the season doesn't help.
Yeah.
Kevin De Bruyne, I don't think, played this week either. So he's injured once again. But that's my slight concern because his bench doesn't look as crazy deep as it has in the past.
They do look weaker this year than they've looked in the past few years. They look more vulnerable where Haaland, or it's already happened with Rodri, go down. Who's going to step in to solve them? Because there's no one in the world like those two.
No.
There's really not. There's no one as good as Rodri right now at the 6. I don't care what people say. Declan Rice ain't there. No, that for sure. No one's there. And no one's as good as Erling Haaland up top.
Yeah.
No one is that clinical right now. I'll take Haaland over any player if I need a goal. So you're in a situation now where if those guys go down, other guys have to step up, and they haven't been stepping up as much as you would hope, especially defensively. With Rodri going out, the rest of the back line, by the way, has been there for a bit. You know, it's not like they brought in new additions, really. They've all been there for at least a season. Vardiol's the newest one. Akanji as well. But they've been there for over a year. There's really no excuse for it.
No, not at all. And I mean, it is what it is. And as we said, Rodri has been replaced by Kovacic, and sure enough, he does get the 2 goals today. So,
but they're different players.
Yes, exactly.
Kovacic is much more attack-minded than Rodri, which Rodri can still attack, but he's not going to be as stout defensively.
Yeah. And that's what I think they miss is that defensive mindset because you can score. This team can score goals from millions of different ways. So I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about, as we've talked, coming up against teams who have good attacks.
Yeah.
Still a while till they actually play someone of real attacking quality in the Premier League. They don't play Tottenham until the 23rd of November. Liverpool's the big one on the 1st of December. But then it's like, I don't know, Man U doesn't have a good attack. Aston Villa. It's a weird year because there's not really any outstanding attacking sides. Just looking through these teams, it's like gave up 2 against Arsenal, but that was kind of to be expected. It's weird. It's a weird year in the Premier League in terms of player quality, not necessarily the team's results.
Yeah.
Going to say Fulham side of things, tough to blow a 1-0 lead. They're still up there, 8th place, as we said earlier, and They have some favorable fixtures coming up out of the international break, so I can see them maybe getting some stuff going, and who knows how they'll do the rest of the way. I expect mid-table mediocrity come the end of the year. 12,
Yeah,
between 11 and 12, or 11 and 13.
playing really well though.
They
To
are.
give them credit, they've been playing really well, and they played well in this game too.
Oh yeah,
You know, that's about as good as it can get. So
on the road against Man City, only to lose by 1, scoring first. Most teams will take that.
yeah, nothing to do but keep your head up after that and keep going. They're doing well.
Yeah. Team that's also been just somehow they're in the top 4, but have not looked good and drew another stupid match this past weekend is Chelsea. Drew 1-1 with Nottingham Forest. Chris Wood gets the first goal 49 minutes in. So just once again, within the first 5 minutes after halftime, as we say time and time again, he gets the goal. Didn't hold on very long. Nani, who's been outstanding this year,
He's good, man. Medway is good.
gets a goal 6 minutes later to equalize it, or 8 minutes later to equalize it, on an assist from England's Player of the Year, or the English Player of the Year, Cole Palmer. It ultimately finishes 1-1. James Ward-Prowse gets sent off, and that's about the extent of it. But this one was a little feisty towards the end. Cucurella and Neco Williams got into it in the 89th minute. Levi Colwell was shown a yellow as well, so 3 yellow cards in the same minute. Went to 13 minutes of stoppage time. What's your reaction to this kind of match? Because this is one that Chelsea should really be winning on paper.
Yeah, Chelsea, you obviously expect better, but I'm going to give props to Forest because well done. You know, they played well this game. They had 16 shots, 9 of which were on target. You know, obviously Chelsea's going to win the possession battle. Of course they are against Nottingham Forest. But Forest actually had more dangerous chances at the end of the day. They had more of them on target. They took more advantage of their shots than Chelsea actually did. So fair play to them, and they got the result. You know, they got the result. They got a pretty big point, and they're in 10th place right now. 10 points from 10 games. Or no, 10 points from 7 games. I don't know why I said that. 10 points from 7 games. So they're doing really well right now. And they continue that form into this game. You know, they've been probably with the players that they have and how things went last year, they've been as surprising as they could be, you know, to be in the position they are now. And they played well this game. And Chelsea, just this year's a lot better. Don't get me wrong. This year's a lot better. It's just got to be a little bit better at times, you know. I'll give them credit. They have made huge steps compared to how they started last season. Maresca's doing a lot better than I thought he would be doing. But you still see that same Chelsea team show up in games like this where they just underperform. Because you know they've got the guys who go and score goals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they've got Cole Palmer who scored 4.5. They got Nicholas Jackson, who's been having a very, very good season. You got Jadon Sancho, you got Madueke, you've got plenty of options.
Yeah.
So you'd expect more from them, especially when you have the lion's share possession. And you have, I think it was 22 total shots. You'd love to see more than one of those go in. Because that's a lot of shots. And you had 8 on target, which is still a decent amount. You'd obviously want more from the 22, but that's still a decent amount.
Yeah.
But it just isn't quite good enough that of your 8 shots on target, you're getting 12.5% to go into the goal. You want better numbers than that with the attacking quality that you have, you know, because they've shown it. That's the thing. They've shown it. They've shown that they can do it. So this game, a point's a point. It's not the end of the world. But if you're Chelsea, you're looking at this as a loss, you know, especially because Forrest finished the game down a guy for 12 minutes plus stoppage time. So the final 25 minutes of the game. So
you expect more from that.
Yeah, you'd really want to capitalize on that.
And I will say for Chelsea looking forward, it doesn't get much tougher than their next match. Out of the international break, you got to make your way up to Liverpool, take on the red side there at Anfield. That's going to be really telling because, I mean, you look at the table. Chelsea's 4 points back at Liverpool for the top spot. So they're up there right now. But I just still feel like there's that gap between Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, Even though they're in fourth, Chelsea just seems so much worse off at the moment.
Yeah.
But we'll get into those previews come that week. But weird time. Props to Forest. They've looked much better than to be expected this year, especially after just surviving relegation a year ago. So they'll take it. Good to see Chris Wood, ex-Leeds guy, getting a goal there.
Mm-hmm.
Missing James Ward-Prowse for the next match will be interesting because it is Crystal Palace, who sometimes they play really well and still find a way to lose. Sometimes they are terrible.
Yeah.
Hard to get a read on Palace. Hard to get a read on Forest. Hard to get a read on Man United as well. They drew 0-0 with Aston Villa, and honestly, as we discussed before, there's not a whole lot to talk about in this one, apart from the fact that they had 3 yellow cards in the first half for Man U, 2 in the second, and then Ross Barkley got a yellow back for Aston Villa in the end. I do not understand this Man U team at all, because you look at what happened against Porto. You're up 2-0 20 minutes in. And that was midweek last week in the Europa League Europa League. Give up 2 goals in quick succession, a 7-minute stretch shortly after that. Give up a goal early to start the second half. And it's a Harry Maguire stoppage time equalizer to save you. Of all the people, I didn't think it'd be Harry Maguire saving 10-man Man U after Bruno gets sent off for the second consecutive game. What do you think of the situation at Man U right now? Maybe this match from the weekend, and we'll also migrate into the deal with Erik ten Hag.
So just taking this result surface value, looking at who they're playing, Aston Villa, it's actually not a bad result. On the road, 0-0, you would take that result in most cases, except for the fact that this game was boring and Man U looks uninspired as they've looked all season. That's the biggest problem. They just don't look good. They don't look like they want to be playing half the time. Maybe that's why Bruno just gets red after red.
Be on the field.
Yeah. It's gross watching them right now, Because look, I'm loving watching them fail, but it's still catching me off guard because I'm like, this team is just so underperforming right now. It's not just underperforming, they're just disjointed. It feels forced. They don't feel cohesive at all. It just feels like you throw guys out there and try to force them to play well together. It just doesn't happen that way. I'll give props to the center backs and to the defense as a whole. Maguire and Evans get the start, which, by the way, that is United to be starting Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans.
So gross.
Is so gross. And they did their job at the end of the day, and then you sub in Lindelof. Obviously you have the Lit coming in as well, but it's bad. I think the recruitment has been bad. I think the play style is just terrible right now. The morale is down. We'll hop into this here in a sec, but Ten Hag, it might be time.
I was just gonna ask you, you brought up the players have been playing bad. All this stuff with the personnel on the field, you're not starting the right guys, or it doesn't seem like the right guys are performing. How much at the end of the day is that on Ten Hag, and how much of it is on the players?
So at the end of the day, any result that happens is on the players because they're the ones playing. But as a head coach, it's your job to instill certain values. It's your job to instill a play style. And it's your job to keep morale high. It's your job to put the right players onto the field to succeed, So, yeah, it's the players playing. I've always maintained that at the end of the day, any group of players can go out there and win. It's really up to them. At a certain point, the coach can't do anything. But when you see a consistent pattern like this of mediocrity is how I'd call it.
Yeah.
You got to look at that coach. And he saved his job last year with the FA Cup win because without that, he would have been gone. 100%. Which is why I'm shocked that they haven't pulled the plug on him already. I thought they were going to. Haven't heard anything yet. So because I remember seeing stuff. I'm like, decisions going to be made on Ten Hag today. Haven't heard anything yet. So I guess assume he's going to stay on for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But he's got to take responsibility because, again, the head coach needs to be the one at the end of the day who leads everything. You're the one who needs to play the right guys. You're the one who needs to make sure everything's ticking. You're the one who needs, and again, recruitment isn't entirely on Ten Hag. That goes beyond him. That goes general manager, it goes director of football, it goes with scout, it goes with a lot more than just Ten Hag. But you also have to be involved in that aspect as well, and you have to take responsibility for that because I don't think Man U's recruitment has been very good at all recently. The only signing that I was like, okay, there we go. That's pretty decent. I'd have to say was DeLit.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty good signing for him.
That's worked out.
And Ahmed Diallo a long time ago. But that's just because I love that guy. And Ugarte, I'll give him credit for that, but he didn't even play. And he hasn't done anything. So it just he's got to take responsibility at a certain point, and that's how it works. It is the players who decide games because they're the ones making decisions, they're the ones playing, but it's the head coaches who at the end of the day are held responsible because they're the ones who are hired to lead those players. And Ten Hag right now is not leading in an effective way. I'm surprised he hasn't been fired yet. I thought it was coming. Man U they like to act like this in certain situations, minus the, who was it? Louis Van Gaal was allowed to stay on for a long time.
He stayed on far too long.
Yeah, he was on for a long time. Apart from that, they've been pretty quick when they want to pull the plug. So I'm surprised he's still around. Maybe they're giving him just a little bit more time, but he is teetering right now on having a job or not. And I think if I was on the Manchester United staff right now or boardroom, I would be looking at other options. Now you got to also look at who you can get realistically right now and who actually wants to come, who would have realistic interest. So that's going to play a part as well. But I would be looking to see if I can make a change because right now it just doesn't look like he's leading them to the place that you want to be if you're Manchester United. Right now they're in 14th place.
Yeah.
That's not good enough.
No, they're closer to the relegation zone than they are to the Champions League. 6 points off 5 points off relegation. Yeah. So, I mean, they're right in the middle of everything. But it's interesting to me because when I was doing the research for this and looking at stuff, apparently Man U, their board of executives, had a 7-hour meeting yesterday just discussing Erik Ten Hag and his future. Which amazes me that I don't know what else they need to see from you. You're 14th place. Maybe it's something about you brought up Louis Van Gaal. Maybe it's something about having these Dutch coaches who just get to get away and stay for much, much longer. I really think if they don't sack him now and they don't pick up 2, 3, 4 Premier League matches, if they're not picking up at least 9 points, at least in those next 4 Premier League matches, he has to be gone by the next international break.
Yeah, he's got to be out the door.
Yep.
Yeah.
Personally, I would love him to stay. I think he should manage them for all of eternity.
Manage them all the way to the championship.
But as far as all bias aside, it's like it's time, Ten Hag. You haven't lived up to expectations. But with that being said, I mean, he did win 2 FA Cup or won the FA for you. I don't know how they'll do in Europe this year. They've looked very suspect already in Europe. Obviously, the 3-3 draw, 1-1 draw with Twente. It's not been a pretty season for them at all.
No, it hasn't. They need to pick up that win. They need that win.
Yes, they do. That's a must-win game that I've seen them have. But on a different note, do you have any final thoughts on like the Man U team or any of these matches really this past weekend before I hop into some of? I guess there's one other one we'll touch briefly on, but do you have any more thoughts on Erik ten Hag and this Man U situation?
They just lack the identity that Manchester United should have. They lack it. They're not winners. This group, you don't have winners right now on the field. That's what it looks like out there. You don't have winners.
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest loss of the whole past weekend comes in a win. Liverpool beat Crystal Palace 1-0, but goalkeeper Erik ten Hag, or oh god, not goalkeeper Erik ten Hag, goalkeeper Alisson came off with an injury in the 79th minute, went down with a hamstring injury. He's now looking likely that he's out until at least after the next international break. So he's roughly, I've read, 6 to 8 weeks he's out for. How big of a blow is that for Liverpool, who currently leads the table and have some very, very big matches coming up in before his return?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, he's one of the best keepers in the world, unbelievable shot stopper, and he's the heartbeat of their whole defensive operation. You know, and that's any goalkeeper, but it really plays true with someone who's been there as long as he has and has been as successful as he has at Liverpool. So without him, you go to Kelleher, but as you said before, he's also hurt. So right now you're in a pretty.
It does sound like Kelleher is going to be healthy after the international break. He's just been injured the last couple of weeks.
So he should be the starter realistically after. But he's also coming off and not playing a lot and coming off an injury, which could play its part. But again, you try to not think of it as too much of a negative, because you should trust all your goalkeepers, and it's not like they're the ones scoring goals. But at the end of the day, they're the ones saving games. Mm-hmm. And Alisson's the kind of guy who can save you a result when you really need it. So him being out for a little bit will play a big part. And it's not just the actual results and the playing, but you kind of take a hit to morale when your leader in between the sticks is out. Mm-hmm. You know, it's different when you're a defender. Suddenly you've got a new keeper back there. You got to adjust how you play a little bit, you know. Maybe you can't trust them as much when you try to force a player wide. Maybe you actually have to go and make that block rather than just keeping them wide and trusting Alisson to make the save. Maybe you can't trust him as much on a certain foot. You got to change it up a little bit. So it has pretty big ripple effects across the board. I think realistically Liverpool's going to be fine. Yeah. You know, they've looked really good this season. Attack has been firing on all cylinders. Defense has looked pretty solid as well. And at the end of the day, you do have Virgil van Dijk back there. So that'll be fine. But it is something to keep an eye on, because it is something that can have an effect, even if it's not in the most obvious ways. It could affect how they play both on the ball and off the ball. So curious to see how they play, but he won't be out too long, which is good. It won't be too long. A month is still like relatively long, but it's not half a year. It's not a full year. But
for me, it's just the fixtures that come up in that. And I'll go into some stats between him and Kelleher before I go into that, but it's like there's not a bad replacement to have. Win percentage, and regardless, I'm not saying Kelleher is better than Alisson by any means. Alisson has 207 starts for Liverpool. Yeah. Kelleher has 16. But in those times, Alisson is a 66.7 win percentage. Kelleher is 68.8. Kelleher averages 2.3 points per game compared to Alisson's 2.2, so those are virtually the same. So it's not really like they're losing all that much. It doesn't seem. It seems, and as you said, their defense is so good. Their offense attack is so good. Midfield is so good. There's a reason they're top of the table. But upcoming, and this is not just Premier League. This is, I'll go through all the, because it's all significant fixtures through that next international break. But home to Chelsea, at Leipzig in Champions League, at Arsenal in the Premier League, at Brighton in the EFL Cup, home to Brighton in the Premier League, home to Leverkusen, and then home to Aston Villa. Those are the matches that Alisson is guaranteed to be out for. I'm a little concerned about a couple of those. I think they should be fine against Chelsea. At Arsenal scares me.
Yeah.
Leipzig scares me only because he doesn't have that international or that European experience playing on the road in a big German club. The fan base will be up for it. Home to Leipzig won't be, or Leverkusen won't be easy. Brighton, I have no idea what Brighton team shows up that day for either of those matches. One's a cup, one's a league. Who knows? But then Aston Villa before the next international break isn't exactly an easy one.
Yeah, tough stretch.
Yeah, it is. What are your expectations for them over that stretch? You think they'll win majority and act like nothing's ever happened, or?
I still feel confident. Like you just laid out the stat. Kelleher's not a bad replacement to have. I think a lot of that's due to the defensive strength that they have in general. And give them a lot of props. I think that's more to do with them that both of their keepers have equal winning percentages, basically. I think it really comes down to the defense. So I feel good for them. I think the Arsenal one will be tough, but that was going to be tough no matter what. The Leipzig's a tough trip. Villa's a tough game. But I think this team will be fine. I really do. I think they're just good enough in every other area that you don't have to worry as much. And as we just mentioned, Keller's not a bad replacement. I think they'll be fine. I don't think if they lose games, it'll be because necessarily Alisson's out. That's my take. It could be completely wrong. And again, it has ripple effects. It will change things, and it can lower morale. So I could be completely off base, and this could tank them early. I don't think it will. I think they'll be fine.
And I mean, we talked about defensively how stout they've been. They have only given up 2 goals this season. 1 goal in a shocking 1-0 loss to Nottingham Forest. And then they gave up 1 against Wolves in the 2-1 win. Just a couple of weeks. Yep. So who knows? I think they'll be perfectly fine. There's a reason they're top of the table now. Arne Slot has been superb so far. I don't think any Liverpool fans are upset with the way he's taken over after Jurgen Klopp's departure. So there is that. Any other final thoughts on the Premier League or anything in the footballing world at the moment before we wrap this one up?
Some fun international games. We got European games going on right now. We got South American.
England just went down 1-0 to Greece. So
did they?
Yes.
Sweet.
It's coming home. I don't know what, but it.
Yeah, you guys are not a Nations League kind of squad.
No. Hey, give me an Israel upset today, though.
Dude, Israel's not bad. They're only down 2-1, I think. Yeah, they tied it up for a bit.
Yeah.
Hey. Italy, Belgium's on. There's some good-ass games.
Yeah, we got some spicy ones around South America as well this international break.
Mm-hmm.
Where was it?
AFC games are on right now.
Oh, yeah. It's a great time. As much as we love having the Premier League on and all that, it's fun to have some of these international ones that actually mean stuff. Like we have the AFCON qualifiers. We have the Asian Federation World Cup qualifiers going on, I believe. Don't look now. And I keep looking at it and keep saying it. North Korea still surviving in World Cup qualifying.
They've had a good run. I did notice that when I was looking at it.
They have been. And I don't know if you saw the Women's U20 World Cup.
They beat the U.S.
They beat the U.S. Then they go and beat, was it Japan in the finals? So North Korea won a World Cup title before the U.S. At least, well, I guess, actually, no. Because the U.S. women have won stuff.
Yeah.
Seeing North Korea win anything, they won a title more recently in anything than England.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Kim Jong-un's doing something right, I guess.
Hey, women's soccer, they've been strong for a while. I'll give them credit. They've had some decent teams.
Yeah, I was surprised. I hadn't really noticed that until I looked at the FIFA rankings a few months ago, probably just after the Euros. And there was something like 10th in the world on the women's side of things.
Mm-hmm. They're good. They're good at women's. Men's has been pretty much non-existent since obviously
we got beat 7-0 in the World Cup.
They do have Han Kwang Song, which what a name, by the way. But This man, he played in Italy, Serie A, Cagliari, played for Perugia on loan, then went to Juventus. Really good player. The only reason he didn't play there, he couldn't get authorization to work because he was North Korean.
Yeah.
So he kind of got screwed over, had to go back home. Dude's a baller, though. And he fell off the face of the earth for a while, but he's on their national team. He's a baller. So maybe they've got something going with that. But, yeah, North Korea, they've got 2 points from 3 games. As an American, you hate to see him do well, but as a football fan, man, let's get some craziness.
I mean, could you imagine North Korea playing in the World Cup in the U.S.?
Ooh, yeah, that would make for some interesting storylines.
Oh, it would be. Well, I'm just looking at the women's FIFA rankings, the most recent ones from August. This team was second in the world before it, the French women's national team. They now sit 10th, 1 place behind North Korea. Who would have thought that?
Crazy.
This is why we love this sport, folks. It is pure entertainment no matter what side of the world you're on. It brings everything together. On that note, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you click that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our It's Called Football episodes or any of our other Vendetta Sports Media colleagues. Previews, posts, videos, any of that stuff. NBA season's around the corner, so we got a whole load of NBA previews coming out. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.